Hi, my name is Sharia Ramirez. My family is originally from Mexico, but before I was born, my parents moved to the United States and became citizens. Mom, tell me again why we left Mexico, I asked, curling up next to her on the old creaky sofa that had become our storytelling spot. My mother, Anna, put down her knitting, her eyes reflecting a mixture of nostalgia and pain. Ah, Sharia, it's a story of dreams and struggles. Your father, Carlos, and I wanted a better life, something we couldn't have back home. I could see the flicker of the past in her eyes as she continued. In Mexico, we faced many hardships. The medicine was subpar, and opportunities were scarce. Carlos worked tirelessly, but it was never enough. Dad always says he did it for us, I interjected, trying to picture my father, a young man back then, full of hope and determination. Yes, he did, she replied, her voice tinged with pride. He got a job offer in the United States. It was our ticket to a better life, a chance to escape the constraints we faced. But leaving must have been hard, I said softly, trying to imagine leaving everything behind. It was, mi hija, she sighed. We left our families, our home, but we carried our dreams and hopes across the border. Your father was my rock during those times. I looked up at her. And then you became citizens. Yes, she said, her eyes brightening. It was one of the happiest days of our lives. We finally felt we belonged somewhere. That's why, Sharia, don't let anyone tell you you're here illegally. We earned our place. I nodded, feeling a swell of pride for my parents. I won't, Mom. I'm proud of where we come from and where we are now. She smiled, pulling me into a hug. That's my girl. Always remember your roots, but don't forget to spread your wings. Life started with whispers of struggle in my ears. I was too young to understand the complexities, but I could feel the tension in our small home. My parents, carrying the weight of a new country on their shoulders, often had hushed conversations after they thought I had fallen asleep. One night, I crept closer to the living room, where the dim light of a single lamp cast long shadows. Miguel, I am worried about Sharia. My mother's voice quivered slightly. She doesn't seem to be developing like the other children. My father sighed, his voice heavy with fatigue. Anna, give her time. She's just different, that's all. She'll catch up. But what if she doesn't? Mom's voice cracked with fear. What if she needs more help than we can give? We'll do whatever it takes, Dad assured her, though I could hear the underlying worry. We left Mexico for a better life, for her. We'll make it work somehow. I remember feeling a lump in my throat, not fully grasping their worries, but understanding I was the cause of their distress. I tiptoed back to bed, a mix of emotions swirling in my young mind. The next day, as I played alone in the corner of our cramped apartment, I overheard Mom talking on the phone. Yes, she's 3 now, but she's not talking much. Yes, we're considering seeing a specialist. I didn't know what a specialist was, but the way Mom said it made it sound important and a little scary. Later that evening, over dinner, Dad tried to lighten the mood. Sharia, how about we go to the park this weekend? You can ride the swings. I looked up, smiling for a moment before glancing at Mom. She tried to smile back, but her eyes didn't light up like they usually did. That weekend, as Dad pushed me on the swings, he said softly, "You know, Sharia, everyone is different, and that's okay. You're perfect to us, just the way you are." His words were meant to comfort, but even then, I knew our little family was navigating through uncharted waters, clinging to each other in a world that felt so vast and unknown. As I grew older, the challenges I faced at home with my family's struggles slowly began to mirror in my school life. Entering school, I braced myself for a new world, where my developmental delays and unique background were about to test my resilience in ways I had never experienced before. "Hey, Sharia, why are you always so slow?" taunted Jessica, a girl in my class, as I struggled to find the right words. Her words echoed through the playground, attracting a small crowd. I just think before I speak," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. My heart pounded in my chest, feeling every pair of eyes on me. "More like your brain's slow," Jessica sneered, and a chorus of laughter followed. I looked around, searching for an ally, but found none. Even the teachers seemed to turn a blind eye. I felt a lump in my throat and fought back tears. It wasn't just Jessica. It was the constant whispers, the giggles behind my back, the pointed fingers. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" I finally mustered the courage to say, my voice stronger now. "Oh, did the baby finally learn to talk?" Jessica mocked, stepping closer. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my trembling hands. "I'm not a baby. I just process things differently." "That's one way to say you're dumb," another voice chimed in. My face flushed with a mix of anger and humiliation. I wanted to scream, to tell them how wrong they were, but words failed me again. A teacher, Mrs. Hernandez, finally intervened. "That's enough, Jessica. Everyone, back to your activities," she said firmly. As the crowd dispersed, Mrs. Hernandez walked over to me. "Sharia, are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle. "I don't understand why they hate me so much," I admitted, the tears I had been holding back now streaming down my face. "They don't hate you, Sharia. They just don't understand you," Mrs. Hernandez said, kneeling to be at eye level with me. "And sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand. But I'm not scary. I'm just me," I said, sniffling. "And you are wonderful, just the way you are. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise," she reassured me, handing me a tissue. "Thank you, Mrs. Hernandez," I said, a small smile breaking through my tears. As I walked away, I realized that while the road ahead would be tough, I wasn't alone. I had someone who believed in me, and that was a start. Because of the amount of bullying and public humiliation, I decided to transfer to a new school because I wanted a fresh start where my past would not cast a shadow over me. I longed for a more understanding and inclusive environment where I could excel both academically and socially, make new relationships, and be seen and accepted for who I really am, rather than haunted by the prejudices and misunderstandings of my old school. The first day at my new school felt like stepping into a different world. I clutched my backpack straps tightly, taking in the unfamiliar faces and the daunting hallways. I whispered to myself, "You can do this, Sharia." As I navigated through the crowded corridors, I bumped into a girl with bright red hair. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I exclaimed. She smiled warmly. "No worries. I'm Lucy. You new here?" I nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. "Yeah, I'm Sharia, just transferred." "Welcome to Lincoln High, Sharia," Lucy beamed. "Let me show you around. What's your first class?" As we walked, Lucy chattered about the school, the teachers, and the different clubs. Her friendliness was a refreshing change from my previous school experiences. When the bell rang, signaling the start of class, Lucy said, "Hey, we have math together. Come on, I'll introduce you to some friends." In math class, I sat next to Lucy, who introduced me to a few of her friends. "Guys, this is Sharia. She's new here." A boy with glasses, Mark, greeted me first. "Hi, Sharia. Welcome. Don't worry, Mr. Benson's class is the best. Just stay awake during his lectures." Everyone laughed, and I found myself joining in. The laughter, the smiles, the feeling of being included. It was all so new to me. For once, I didn't feel like an outsider. During lunch, Lucy invited me to sit with her group. I hesitated at first, but the friendly faces around the table beckoned me over. As we ate, they shared stories, asked about my interests, and made plans to hang out after school. "It's movie night tomorrow at my place. You should come, Sharia," Lucy suggested. I was taken aback by the invitation. "Really? I'd love to." As the day ended, I couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. I walked home with a smile, thinking about the new friends I made. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. When high school was over, I went to college. College life was a fresh start, a chance to redefine myself. Walking across campus, with its sprawling lawns and buzzing students, I felt excitement and anxiety. I clutched my textbooks tightly as I headed to my first class. In the crowded hallway, I bumped into someone. "Oh, sorry," I whispered, looking up and seeing a guy with a friendly smile. "No worries," he said, meeting my eyes. I'm Bob. Are you new here? I nodded, feeling a little flustered. Yeah, first day. I'm Sharia. Nice to meet you, Sharia. What's your major? Asked Bob, his curiosity genuine. Psychology, I replied, feeling a little calmer. And you? Business administration. Hey, I'm heading to the cafeteria. Want to join me? I can show you around, he offered. I hesitated for a moment, but then agreed. As we walked, Bob told many stories about the campus, making me laugh with his impressions of some of the professors. We found a table in the cafeteria, and the conversation flowed easily. He asked about my family, and I told him a little about my Mexican background and how my parents came to the United States. That's incredible, Bob said, genuinely interested. You must be very proud of them. Yes, I admitted, feeling warmth in my chest. They've been through a lot. We talked about our aspirations, fears, and favorite movies. I found myself opening up to him in a way I hadn't opened up to anyone in a very long time. As we were parting, Bob said, "Hey, I really enjoyed talking to you. Would you like to get together again sometime?" I smiled, feeling an amazing connection. I'd love to. After that chance encounter, we started dating. As I watched Bob's face, the soft glow of the restaurant's dim lights highlighting his features, I felt a wave of contentment wash over me. We had been dating for months, and every moment with him felt like a step into a future I had always dreamed of. "Bob, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my hands trembling slightly. The news of my pregnancy had been a surprise, but a joyful one. I was eager to see his reaction, expecting happiness, maybe even excitement. He looked up from his plate, his eyes meeting mine. "What is it, Sharia?" His voice was calm, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. We're going to have a baby," I said, the words spilling out in a rush. There was a moment of silence. I watched as a range of emotions flickered across Bob's face: surprise, confusion, and then something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't the joy I had expected. "A baby?" he finally said. "Wow, that's unexpected." I reached across the table, looking for reassurance. "But it's good news, right? We're starting a family." Bob took a deep breath, his eyes avoiding mine. "Sharia, it's complicated. I think we should wait to get married. You know, after the baby is born, we don't want it to seem illegitimate." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "But why wait, Bob? I thought you'd be happy." He finally met my gaze, his expression serious. "It's just better this way. Trust me, okay?" I nodded, a sense of unease settling over me. His reaction wasn't what I had anticipated, and deep down, I knew something was off. But I pushed those thoughts away, choosing to believe in the man I loved. It was weeks later I went to the registrar's office to inquire about our marriage paperwork, only to be met with a shocking revelation. "Good morning. I'm here to register my marriage with Bob," I said cheerfully to the clerk behind the counter. The clerk typed something into her computer, frowned, and looked up at me. "I'm sorry, Miss Ramirez, but there seems to be a mistake. Our records show you were divorced 10 days ago." Confusion swirled in my head. "Divorced? That's impossible. There must be some error." The clerk shook her head. "I'm afraid not. The documents are quite clear." I felt my world spin. "Can I see those documents?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. As she handed me the papers, my eyes skimmed over the details. They cited my name, but everything else was unfamiliar. It detailed a marriage to a foreign national, a quick divorce, all executed under my name without my knowledge. Stumbling out of the office, I called Bob. "Bob, what have you done? The office says I'm divorced." There was a pause before he answered. "Sharia, I can explain. Just come home. We'll talk about it." I confronted him as soon as I saw him. "Explain this." I thrust the papers at him. Bob's face was a mask of guilt. "I did it for us, Sharia. I needed the money, and this was the only way. By betraying me? By using me for a sham marriage?" My voice broke. "Sharia, please. I didn't think it would hurt anyone," he pleaded. "Hurt anyone? Bob, you've destroyed our trust, our future." Tears streamed down my face. Bob reached out to me, but I recoiled. "I can't do this. I'm going to the police." He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You can't. Think about our baby. I yanked my arm away. This baby deserves better than a father who lies and deceives. I stood in front of the mirror, my hand resting gently on my belly. The reflection staring back at me was a mix of strength and vulnerability. The revelation of Bob's deceit about the sham marriage had left me reeling, but the life growing inside me gave me a sense of purpose. "Mom," I called out softly as she entered the room. Her eyes, always so full of warmth, now carried a tinge of worry. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" she asked, her hand reaching out to caress my cheek. I took a deep breath. I need to tell you something about Bob. He used me for a fake marriage." Her expression shifted from concern to shock. "What? Sharia, what are you saying?" "It's true, Mom. He did it for money and a green card. And I had no idea." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavily between us. Then, with a resolve that surprised even me, I said, "I need to go to the police, Mom. I can't let him get away with this." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'll come with you." At the police station, my heart pounded in my chest as I recounted everything to the officer. Bob's charming facade, our relationship, and the shocking discovery. The officer, a stern-looking woman with kind eyes, listened intently. "We'll need to confront Mr. Bob about these allegations," she said firmly. "Can you handle that?" I nodded, though fear gnawed at my insides. The confrontation with Bob was nothing like I had imagined. In the sterile room at the station, his face twisted into a sneer when I entered. "So, you decided to play the victim now, Sharia," he spat out, his words like venom. "I'm not playing anything, Bob. I trusted you, and you betrayed me," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You won't win this," he hissed, his face inches from mine. But as I turned to leave, Bob's anger erupted. He lunged at me, his hands pushing me hard. I stumbled, a scream escaping my lips as I clutched the railing, barely maintaining my balance. Officers rushed in, pulling Bob away as he continued to shout obscenities. I was shaking, tears streaming down my face, but inside, a fire had been lit. I was going to fight this, not just for me, but for the little life inside me. As we left the station, my mom wrapped her arm around me. "You're so brave, Sharia. We'll get through this together." And in that moment, I believed her. Despite the fear and uncertainty, I knew I wasn't alone. I had fallen, but I was ready to rise. Then I went to the trial. My parents were by my side, their faces a mix of concern and determination. As we took our seats, I caught a glimpse of Bob, looking disheveled and anxious. The stark contrast to the man I once knew was jarring. "Are you ready, Sharia?" my dad whispered, squeezing my hand. "I have to be," I replied, trying to muster confidence. The judge entered, and the room fell into a respectful silence. "We are here for the case of Sharia Ramirez versus Robert Johnson," the judge announced. My heart skipped a beat at the sound of my name. The prosecutor stood, outlining the charges against Bob: fraud, deception, and assault. He described how Bob had exploited our relationship for his own gains, detailing each calculated step Bob took in his sham marriage scheme. Bob's lawyer tried to paint him as a victim of circumstance, claiming financial desperation drove his actions. I couldn't help but scoff softly. The idea of Bob as a victim was absurd. Then, it was my turn to speak. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. "Your Honor," I began, "Bob's actions have caused immeasurable harm, not just to me, but to the sanctity of marriage and trust itself." Bob interrupted. "Sharia, please, you have to understand, I never meant to hurt you." His voice was desperate, almost pleading. I turned to face him. "You pushed me down the stairs, Bob. You used me. There's no excuse for what you did." The judge called for order, and silence enveloped the room once more. After what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered his verdict. Bob was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 5 years in prison. As the judge announced the sentence, Bob's mother burst into tears, her sobs echoing in the courtroom. Bob looked defeated, his head hanging low. His father, sitting rigidly, refused to meet anyone's eye. Leaving the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Justice was served, not just for me, but for the integrity of the law. My parents hugged me tightly, their relief palpable. "We're proud of you, Sharia," my mom said, her eyes brimming with tears. "Let's go home," my dad said gently. "It's time to move forward." And with that, I stepped out of the courtroom, ready to close this painful chapter and begin anew. I stood in my old bedroom, now transformed into a nursery, gazing at the little crib where my daughter slept peacefully. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions, but in this moment, there was a sense of calm. "Sharia, you're doing an amazing job," my mom said, entering the room with a gentle smile. She placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. I sighed, turning to face her. "Thanks, Mom. It's just overwhelming sometimes, you know?" She nodded knowingly. "I do, but look at you, handling everything with such grace. Your strength amazes me." My dad walked in, his eyes twinkling with pride. "And how's my little granddaughter today?" "Sleeping like an angel," I replied, watching him as he tiptoed over to peek at her. He chuckled softly. "She's got her mother's spirit. You've been through so much, Sharia, but you've come out stronger." "I had no choice, Dad. After everything with Bob," my voice trailed off, the hurt still fresh. Mom squeezed my hand. "You made the right decisions, Karita. Standing up to Bob, protecting yourself and this little one," she said, gesturing to the crib. Dad added, "And you refused his absurd proposal after he got out of prison. That took courage." I looked down, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. "I just want what's best for her," I said softly, my eyes fixed on my daughter. "And you're giving her that," Mom assured me. "A loving home, a strong role model," Dad chimed in. "And 2 doting grandparents." We all laughed, the sound filling the room with warmth. "I just wish things had been different," I admitted. "But they aren't, and that's okay," Mom said firmly. "You're writing your own story now, one of resilience and love. That's what matters." I nodded, feeling the truth in her words. I turned back to my daughter, promising silently to give her the world, to protect her from the hardships I had faced. As I watched her sleep, I realized this was more than just a new chapter for me. It was a whole new book, one where I was the author, and the story was ours to write.